Remembering Aaron Martens. For those of y'all who don't know, Aaron has recently passed away. He had about a 18, 19 month fight with brain cancer. I'm not going to even attempt to say the proper term for it, but very sad and tragic time for him. His family, all of his friends. He had a ton of friends. Just a great individual, but I want to remember him here. I want to tell you, some stories, kind of let you get to know a little bit about who Aaron Martens really was. A lot of people, saw his tournament finishes over the years. His record of tournament finishes and wins and Angler of the Years is unbelievable. It's legendary type stuff. He's one of the best, if not the best, natural bass fisherman I've ever been around. Just unbelievable, uncanny. He's not going to be forgotten anytime soon. I mean, his face is on all a lot of the packages of hooks that I use quite a bit, and I'm going to continue to use. But just to let you get to know a little bit more about Aaron Martens, a lot of people don't know that he's actually colorblind. I didn't really understand. I'm not colorblind. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I knew people that were colorblind, but not like best friends or super close friends. And then one of the tournaments, a number of years ago, it really kind of dawned on me what he deals with, and that we were, it was in between. It was like day 2 or 3 of a tournament, a multi-day tournament. And we're right next to each other, and we're preparing tackle, and I went over and was just talking to him, and just shooting the breeze, and he pulled out his box of robo worms, and he shoved it over in front of me, and he said, "Hey, which ones are kind of like shad colors?" And I said, I don't understand, because there was 2 or 3 shad colors, pro shad, I think, and then and then Aaron's Magic, obviously, and a bunch of other colors, and I said, these two kind of right here. This one's more. It's got a little purple in it. He said, "Oh, this one's got purple in it." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, good." So that's the one he grabbed. That was a tournament on Lake Mitchell where he dominated. It was one of those deals where you cut, and then we went to the Alabama River, and he just absolutely mauled him in August on like flat points, like 2, 3, 4 feet of water on a shaky head with a 6-inch fat robo worm on a shaky head. So anyway, he caved my head in there and a bunch of other times. But Aaron's just a great individual. He had so many friends because he treated everybody the same, and he's such a nice person, not a mean bone in his body, and one of the toughest dudes I've ever met in my life. I mean, just a tough guy. But one of the memories that really sticks out to me is, it's got to be at least 15 years ago now. Early in my career, they were doing this deal in Spain. They did it for a number of years, and they had a man and his wife that really would kind of coordinate it with the Spanish government. And it was really cool. It's called Eurobass, and it pitted, I think it was 12 American anglers against 12 European anglers, and we had a bass tournament, and it was really cool. And he was really trying to drive sport fishing in that region of Spain. And I mean, they had a really good sport show. It was really cool. I mean, Byron Velvick really helped coordinate a lot of that. And, so Byron is the one that helped contact me to go do it. I did it 2 years in a row. Actually, I did it 1 year on my own, and then I did it the second year with my wife, because that year they encouraged and told everybody, bring your wife or your significant other, whatever, and you can you pay the airfare, we pay everything else. And so I jumped on that, and my wife and I went over there. Well, Aaron and Leslie were over there as well, and they came as well. A number like Shaw Grigsby and his wife, and there were others. but we had an absolute great time. Steve and Julia Kennedy were there. And so if you're not familiar with the Spanish culture, they, they have a late lunch, get up early, drink their coffee, and it is not normal coffee. It's like nitro coffee. So they have some nitro coffee, then they have a late lunch, then they have a little siesta where like people chill for a while, and then they have some more of that nitro coffee, and then you're good to go. And then they eat dinner really late. And when they eat dinner, they have wine with lunch, and then they have wine again with dinner. That's kind of the customary thing. It's very European, I think. But so, we were over there having a good time, and we had this just big spread for a dinner one night, just a super big spread. And so a lot of the American anglers were sitting together and their wives, and Aaron was right across from me at the table, and Steve Kennedy was right, kind of right next to him. Well, we were all sitting there, and we'd had some wine, and we're having a good time and laughing. And sure enough, the dinner comes, and they brought a whole pig. They brought an entire whole pig. It's, again, very European. I guess they brought this whole pig out there, and we were grabbing off of the normal parts where the meat is, and we're having a big dinner, and we're eating, and all of a sudden, one thing led to another. We started grabbing parts off of the pig and trying them. And so Aaron was definitely the most brave, I might say. He's probably the bravest of the group, and trying the different parts. And so then he tried the pig's ear. He ate that, much to everybody's amusement. And then he ended up eating the pig's eyeball, to everybody's amusement. And then he, the one that got everybody was when he got the channel out of the ear, like the ear channel, not the ear itself, but like down in there, that came out. And so we're all just in tears laughing, not believing he's getting ready to eat this thing. And then he ate it. And as soon as he took a bite of it, Steve Kennedy got up from the table and he ran outside and he threw up. And Julia ran out with him and came back, because we didn't know where Steve, he just got up and took off. We didn't know what was going on, and Julia came back in and told us that he had to go outside and throw up because he was so disgusted at Aaron eating the ear channel. But he was just brave, loves life, having a good time. And man, I think the next day, if I remember correctly, my face hurt because we were laughing so hard that entire dinner. And of course for that section as well. But that was just one quick Aaron Martin story. We went over there, had a great time, met a lot of good people and friends over there. But so thinking back of how long I've known Aaron, I've known him for, I guess, right at 20 years, maybe a touch more. I met him in the early 2000s at one of the Bassmasters Classics. Of course, one of the ones that he almost won. Met him there, I was, hanging out with Ike and Ellie, and we were hanging out all together, Byron and Aaron, and I just kind of got to know him there. I think that was the first time I ever really talked to him and kind of got to know him. And you could just tell he was a little different. Like when he would talk about things, he processed things a little bit different. His point of view on things was a little bit different. And I think that's what really, really made him great as a bass angler, is that he just had a different perspective than most everybody else. And his perspective, I guess if you were a bass, it's pretty close to a bassist perspective. So a lot of people, when they would have conversations with him, would have a hard time following what he was talking about, because he was so dialed in to the details of whatever it was, because he was very much into the holistic way of life, as far as putting the right things in trying to put the right things in your body, not getting too caught up with having bad things, like saturated fats and all that kind of stuff. And he really tried to help. When he would see other people not doing that, he would try to help them as well. So I'll tell you another fun story. A couple years back, Mercury had a big deal where they brought in a number of their pros to Mercury to really show off their new manufacturing facility. 1 million square feet of manufacturing up there at Mercury. It is amazing if you ever get a chance to check it out. But anyway, we were there, and so I mean, all the big names were there. I mean, Hank Parker was there, Jimmy Houston was there, a lot of the big Mercury big name pros were there, and sure enough, we go one night we go over to have some hors d'oeuvres before dinner, and it's myself and Aaron and Jimmy Houston, and Jimmy Houston grabs a Diet Pepsi, cracks open the top, takes a sip, and Aaron says, Jimmy, I mean, I can't believe you're actually going to drink that, man. I can't believe you're going to have that. It's just got so many bad things in there for you. And Aaron looks over at me, because he knows, like, we think alike on a lot of that stuff. And he says, I mean, John, tell Jimmy, he shouldn't be drinking that stuff. It's not good for him. And I said, Aaron, Jimmy, how old are you, Jimmy? He's standing there with his Diet Pepsi. He said, 76, John, 76. I looked at Aaron. I said, I think he's okay. Aaron was beside himself, because Jimmy just turned around and walked off, and Aaron put his arm around me. He said, man, I thought you were going to tell him not to drink that stuff. You know it's not good for you, because you don't drink soda. I was like, no, I don't normally drink sodas either. No, I'm with you, dude, but he's 76, man. Let him have a good time. Let him keep going, you know. And so anyway, we laughed about that, because he was giving me a hard time. Man, I can't believe you didn't back me up on that. I can't believe. Like, man, I got your back, man. I got you, man. So it was just kind of fun. But, you know, just to tell you another quick Aaron story, is it about what a small world it really is, not only in the bass fishing community, but, you know, in life in general. You run into little crazy things. So when I was growing up and a teenager, one of the guys that kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot of the ropes about how to catch bass, how to fish tournaments, how to practice for tournaments, was a guy named Rick Hawkins. And Rick and I are still good friends. And Rick, we grew up in Virginia, moved to Southern California. When he moved to Southern California, he started working at North Hollywood Marine, big Ranger dealer out there in California. Just happened to be at about the same time that Aaron Martens was getting into bass fishing. So Aaron used to, you know, his early fishing partner was his mom. His mom, Carol, she's a great lady, so much fun to talk to. But so lo and behold, Rick said one day, sitting in the dealership, and here comes this lady and a kid, probably about 10 or 12 years old, and she said, you know, we want to buy a boat. And he said, okay, well, what kind of boat do you want? You know, she said, we like to bass fish. That's what we do. We bass fish, and we want to be able to go to all the different lakes around in the region and bass fish. That's what we want. And he said, sure, you got it. So he grabbed, got the right boat for them, and they ended up buying the boat. And during the process, she says, you know, we don't know exactly how to even back the boat in the water. Can you show us, you know, take us to the lake and show us how to run it? Rick said, yeah, sure, no problem, you got it. So Rick took Carol and Aaron to the lake. I think it was San Pedro, but don't quote me on that. I think it was one of those lakes out there in Southern California. Took her there, showed them, like, had to teach them how to back the boat down the ramp. Taught them how to, you know, undo the straps, and then went out there and showed them how to, drive the boat around and all that. And so I heard this story from Rick, you know, as I was a teenager, late teenager, as you know, Aaron's starting to really come on the scene and do really well. And when I met Aaron, I asked him about Rick, and he didn't really remember Rick. Now, Byron Velvick was friends with Rick and remembered Rick and everything. But Aaron was, I guess he was so young, he didn't really remember Rick and that whole experience until a number of years later. I saw Carol and was talking with her, and I asked her if she remembered Rick Hawkins, and she almost fell out. And she could not believe that I, of all people, was friends with Rick Hawkins. She didn't. She's like, how in the world would you ever be friends with him? You know, because she was associating Southern California. She knew I was from Virginia, and anyway, she put it all together, and it was just really a really cool, neat conversation, because her entire story was exactly like Rick's story. It was just interesting to hear, 10, 15 years later, whatever it was, between the two stories, that they were the same story and they were remembered the same way by two different people. So just such a small world. One of the guys that basically put me on the road to where I am now, he sold Aaron Martens his first bass boat. I mean, what a small world that is. It's just kind of crazy. So everybody knows Aaron Martens as a finesse angler. Unbelievable. He's won, I think, the majority of his tournaments on finesse techniques, especially a drop shot. That's kind of really what he's known for. And of course, the robo worms. I think about a third of the name colors have Aaron's something after it. So it's Aaron's Magic, or Aaron's Pro Shad, or Aaron's Aaron's Morning Dawn. He's got so much influence in that technique. He knows exactly what he wants. He would go to robo worm, and I thought it was interesting that he had all these different color names, and he's actually colorblind, but he can tell you what they bite and what they don't bite. I don't know if that clued him in a little bit more on what he needed to be throwing, but I'll never forget when we were up at Fishing Elite Series up at Green Bay. We're up there. The first 2 days we're on one area, and he went and he was fishing this real major, obvious point in that Green Bay area. There was about 4 or 5 other anglers, all mixing and matching around, because it was a big, it was a group of fish on that point. Well, of course, Aaron caught more than everybody else did, and I asked him about that tournament later, and I said, "Did I see something about you saying that you rigged your worm differently there?" And he said, yeah. And I said, "What were you doing?" He said, "Well, in practice, I was just nose hooking it, and I would throw it down there, and I could get bit. But then when all the boats came around," he said, I felt like they were looking at it, but they weren't biting it. So I needed to change it up. So he said, I wacky rigged it, and then I got a few bites. So then I moved the hook a little bit more towards the front of the worm." He said, "So it was really kind of crooked." He said, "So when I'd pull it, it would go wacky, but then it would kind of turn back." He said, and that was what they really wanted. And so that's what I had to stay with. He also was using 5-pound fluorocarbon, super light line, because he was fishing around other anglers. And he ended up catching more than everybody else, because he's just super fine-tuned into all that little teeny tiny stuff. So I always thought that was crazy. I've done similar things where I've gone wacky, but I mean, to be able to do that and just execute and demolish everybody, that's next level. That just shows what kind of an angler he was. And then, not sure if everybody knows how good of a sight fisherman Aaron was. He could, just a really, really good, he won tournaments out of Clear Lake in California and all that kind of stuff, catching fish, spawning fish off beds. Got to be really, really good at it, and definitely did that on tour. I'll never forget one tournament we were on the St. Johns River, one of the early tournaments where there was actually a lot of eelgrass. And when that was going on, those fish would spawn in big flat areas that all had the clear water, and they would kind of all located in one general area. And I'll never forget, we were in this one general area, and there was probably 20 boats in about a half a mile stretch, 400 or 500 yards this way, half mile this way. And, we're all kind of meandering around, and, you see one, drop the power poles, fish for it, catch it, if you can, whatever. Sometimes you have to readjust, try again. But I'll never, I'm fishing probably 100 yards from Aaron, and I am the shallowest boat on the inside. I was trying to find this different stuff. And so I'm the shallowest boat on the inside of the grass line. Aaron is 100 yards shallower than me. It looked like he was on dry land. I mean, there couldn't have been a foot and a half of water, foot and a half of water at most. I mean, just ultra shallow. And I'm thinking, what in the world is he doing over there? I mean, I never questioned. I knew him well enough not to question really what he was doing. But I mean, I'm where I consider shallow, where I'm so shallow. I'm on the inside edge of the eelgrass. He's 100 yards further than me. I mean, he's almost to the bank. That's how shallow he was. And I'm watching him, and then he poles down. And he did a big circle, and then he poled down, and he started working. And I was like, oh, he must he's working on one. Okay, whatever. People do that. Move around, see a fish, pole down. So he poles down, and I look over, and about 2 casts later, he's hooked up. I said, darn, look at that. He's hooked up. Well, then when this fish jumps, it looked like Shamu herself jumped out of the water. I said, oh my God. And he got down there and lifted up. He lifted up that big old fish, and he let out a woo, like woo. And I thought, uh-oh, that really was a big one. It was over 9. I can't remember. It was 9 something. I don't remember exactly how much it weighed, but it was so long. I mean, it looked like it just kept coming out of the water. And he said it had a great big old head. I didn't get to see it at the weigh-in. It had a great big old head on it, and it was long. He said it should have weighed like 11, but it weighed 9 something. He said just big head, kind of skinny, but just a super long fish, super big fish. And he was up there where nobody else was fishing, and I asked him about it later. He said, yeah, I was going up through there just trying to catch a couple more keepers. And he said he could see that fish way off in the distance. He said, oh my God, is that a fish? Is that a bass? So then he said that's why he did that big circle, because he didn't want to spook it. He didn't want to go straight to it. So he kind of did a big circle to try to get different angles so he could see it before he kind of eased up there. And sure enough, he said he got to where he could see it, eased up a little closer, and then that's where he dropped his poles. And he said it was like the second cast. He said that fish never knew he was there. He didn't think. Second cast, fish went and ate it, got it. But just absolutely wild. I mean, he's won tournaments punching. He's won big tournaments drop shotting, sight fishing. And then one of the craziest things, it just kind of shows you the brilliance of him as an angler, was the Bassmaster Classic that was on Lake Wiley. God, this had to be in the mid 2000s, somewhere in that time frame. And if I'm not mistaken, he finished second in that tournament. And a lot of you bass heads probably remember this. He was catching them off of the bridge there on Lake Wiley on a scrounger. And at that time, nobody was fishing a scrounger for bass. I can just tell you that right now. He had stumbled upon the scrounger saltwater fishing out there in Southern California, and he'd always kept it in his repertoire. He'd always kept it around because it was such a different, unique vibration, whatever. And sure enough, he adapted the scrounger. We put a little fluke on it and ended up almost winning the Bassmaster Classic on that bridge. And he knew it was a problem because later in the tournament, he was catching, like 40 and 50 fish a day off this bridge. But the bite was getting tougher each day. And he knew that last day was going to be tough, real tough, because there was so many boats watching him. He felt like all those depth finders and all that extra boat traffic was not normal for those fish. And so he felt like it spooked him. I mean, he still almost won the dang tournament, but maybe things were different. It would have been different if they'd had a little more room or whatever. But I just never forget, he would throw it out there, and then he would, on each piling, he would throw it out there, and it would sink a little bit, and he would reel it in, and then he'd throw it out there, let it sink a little further, reel it in. So he was fishing the entire water column on each of those pilings on both sides, and then he'd go to the next one, and then he'd come back and do the same thing, and just fished them very methodically, and just totally different way that nobody else was doing. He had a lot of fish bumping his bait. I remember that. Missed a lot of those fish. That's kind of, Typical for the scrounger, though. It happens. But just such a brilliant angler, such a nice dude, unbelievable shape as a physical specimen. When we worked out together, we would go. He was more of a runner. I was more of a lifter. One of the years that the classic that he came in second in Pittsburgh, there was a guy at that time on tour, Mark Tucker, and Mark and I got along great because we both really like to lift weights and all that kind of stuff. So sure enough, on one of our days where we had like the afternoon free, I talked to Aaron. I said, "Hey man, me and Mark are going to go to the gym down. He's got a really nice gym here at the hotel. Like, why don't you go with us?" And this is downtown Pittsburgh, and it was a really nice gym. He said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come down there." Well, Aaron he wasn't into lifting weights, but just a super good natural athlete. He comes down there, and he just starts squatting 225 like 10 or 12 times, and me and Tucker looked at each other and said, I thought you said you didn't lift and work out. He's like, "No, I did, years ago, so I kind of know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't do it much anymore." And the fact that he was just repping out 225 squatting, and at the time he probably weighed 210, so he and I were both like, "Wow, that's pretty impressive." And he gave me a hard time because he said his legs were sore for the rest of the week. His legs were sore for the whole rest of the week because of doing all those squats. And I said, "Hey man, I just said we were going to work out. I didn't tell you that you needed to do all those squats. That was on you, man." But he was just so competitive. He wanted to get in there and do what we were doing. And I'll never forget. That's just the kind of guy he was. He's a great person. Always liked to laugh. Always treated everybody nice, and was one hell of a bass fisherman. So he will definitely be missed. And if anybody has any other cool Aaron Martens stories, I would love to hear them down in the comments. Just drop them down there. Anybody have any cool Aaron Martens stories? I would love to hear those so we can remember him. And his legacy will definitely live on for a long, long time. So rest in peace, brother. Love you.